What a time to be alive, especially after the last 2 years of torment, and I'm sure Liverpool fans feel even more satisfaction. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing the fall of the evil empire, Manchester City. Enough of me yapping though. Let us relish in this rare moment, where, for once in this divided world, we can all come together and laugh. October 30th. Within the first 5 minutes of a match against Tottenham in the Carabao Cup, the citizens give up a goal. Even more embarrassing, Timo Werner scored it. And then 20 minutes later, Stefan Ortega is beaten at his near post from way out. But this is like typical City vs Tottenham. They always dig themselves a hole at the stadium for some reason. I mean, this is nothing new. November 2nd. City once again give up an early goal, this time to Bournemouth. And then after failing to produce anything of worth, things go from bad to worse as City get caught off guard on transition and concede again. Now, do you want to know the last time Manchester City conceded 2 goals against Bournemouth? 1989, when these teams were playing in the second division. The citizens didn't let that result faze them, as they were off to a flying start for Sporting just 3 days later. However, towards the end of the half, City is once more exposed on transition, and they let the hottest prospect in world football score. Then just moments later into the second half, the defense lets City down again, and City are trailing. Again. And it gets even worse, or better for us, when Josko Gvardiol gives up a penalty and Man City concedes a third. But here's an opportunity for the citizens to get back into this one as they win themselves a penalty, but Erling Haaland hits the crossbar. Manchester City then gives away another penalty and they lose 4-1. This is also the first time they've conceded 4 in a Champions League fixture in 8 years. 4 days later, Erling Haaland redeems himself by bagging an early goal in Brighton, and throughout the game, City looked like their normal dominant selves again. And then the defense started capitulating once more. It was at this point we all started to realize City's defending was nowhere near where it had been in the past. In fact, I would even say you could form a squad using students from a school for the blind, and even they'd defend better than this. And that right there, folks, is Manchester City's 4th straight loss. City didn't even see anything like this when they were owned by a corrupt former Thai Prime Minister for a year. And for Pep Guardiola, this was the first time he's ever lost 4 straight games. But defender Ruben Dias had other thoughts. He criticized those already questioning City's title hopes, adding, quote, "It only adds to the team's motivation." One international break later, Manchester City played Tottenham again. And perhaps a break was what this team needed, as the attack looked a lot more like its cutting-edge self. The defense, on the other hand, must have still been dealing with some jet lag. 6 minutes later, Josko Gvardiol then makes another mistake. City's defending is completely all over the place again, and they're 2-0 down after just 19 minutes. And I swear, I've seen this shot of Gvardiol with the 1,000-yard stare like 4 separate times now. It doesn't get any better though for the 5 City fans in attendance at the Etihad. One ball in behind and the players are all over the place again. And I'm aware that nowadays the attendance joke is both inaccurate and also overused, but is that really what we're concerned about? City just lost 4-0 to a Spurs side that's swimming around mid-table this year. 5th straight loss. But don't worry though, it only adds to their motivation. However, against Feyenoord, the tide was finally turned as City scored 3 goals by the 53rd minute. And then they collapsed in a matter of 15 minutes, with every goal conceded being dumber than the last. I mean, what the hell did Ederson think he was going to achieve here?
I am so happy and grateful that the Lord has blessed me to
see this Manchester City downfall.
Next, the citizens faced league leaders Liverpool, a matchup that in the past had always produced fireworks. However, this time, Pep was severely depressed that his other half was no longer there anymore, and as a result, while the scoreline wasn't anything crazy, this game wasn't even close. Always remember what they took from us. However, City in their next match versus a good Nottingham Forest side actually managed to break their 7-game winless streak with a 3-0 win. The citizens then followed that up by conceding in the first 4 minutes to one of the worst attacks in the league. Haaland responded back not too soon after, but then Kyle Walker just let Walmart Saliba Randy Moss him, and Palace took the lead again in the 56th minute. What a time to be alive, man. I don't even care if City equalized. This team is actively struggling against relegation candidates. Next, City would travel to Turin to face Juventus. Both teams were in pretty subpar form at the time, albeit at least Juventus were actually earning points. And in the first half, we witnessed nothing. Absolutely nothing of note. Into the second half though, Kenan Yildiz and Francisco Conceição actually made the game watchable, and City's shambolic defending was exposed like your favorite YouTuber's grooming allegations this year. Followed by that disaster was the Manchester derby at home, and in a game of basically little to no quality, Josko Gvardiol was able to give City the advantage in the 36th minute. But the moment United applied even a little pressure, City's shape looked like a bunch of bugs when you lift the rock from above them. It was only a matter of time that the defense would make another mistake and United equalized in the 87th minute. And someone must have accidentally slipped sleeping pills into the sports drink because just 2 minutes later, no one in the back four decides to deal with Amad Diallo, leaving Ederson in no man's land, and... is this? Oh my god. It's like the dark clouds have finally dissipated after a long and horrifying storm. The stars are glistening more at night. Every water source has become drinkable again. Dogs and cats are singing Kumbaya in the streets. The air is crystal clear everywhere, including Hanoi and even the entirety of Bangladesh. And the skies have never been more beautiful, with the sun shining that little extra. And yes, even in England. Honey, I'm home. I've returned from the long war. And we defeated those sky blue Jerrys. Please, I want to see our children. Oh, how much they've grown since I've been gone. Let us finally live a normal life. Because, honey, Manchester City are officially in their banter era. And Arsenal have not capitalized on it at all. I want to end my existence. One win in the last 11 games. This sounds like Southampton. And quite honestly, we could be talking about Southampton. Because in the last 7 league games, Manchester City is tied for bottom in points earned with the Saints. And it's only because of their 9-game unbeaten run to start the season that they're still 5th somehow. City has conceded 23 goals already. That's more than half of what they have conceded in each of the last 13 seasons. In fact, they've already conceded the same amount as the entirety of the 2018-19 Premier League campaign. And let's move on to the other competitions. The Champions League. 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses has them sitting 22nd, barely above elimination. And we've seen in the past Pep Guardiola go insane when his team isn't performing, but lately it's been kinda concerning. Like, here's him during a post-match interview after City's collapse versus Feyenoord, and you can see all these scratch marks on his head and this cut on his nose. And when someone asked him what happened, he said this.
My finger here, my nail.
That's fine.
I wanna hurt myself, yeah. Good night.
It'll be okay.
Someone tell Klopp to come back, please. But now the question is, how the hell did this happen? Was it injuries? Was it Pep? Was it Richarlison who put a random curse on this team? We'll start with the most surface level one, the one that everyone's seeing currently. The injury crisis. It all started in August when Oscar Bob, yes, that's a name in 2024, suffered a long-term injury. And this was unfortunate for Pep, who had very big plans for the Norwegian. And then towards the end of September, Rodri suffers an ACL injury. This was Man City's personal 9/11 because without Rodri, their win percentage was significantly lower. But it's not just them. Over the last couple months, City has been seeing a lot of injuries to key players. It's gotten so bad that at one point, City only had 13 players available. And as a result, Pep has had to experiment a lot, which has included playing Ilkay Gundogan at a holding midfielder role, which is not working at all. And it's not just the injuries themselves, it's also the players who are at risk of injury. For example, when City were down 2-1 versus Spurs in the Carabao Cup, instead of subbing on Haaland, who had a little bit of an injury concern, Pep decided to sub on defender Jamai Simpson-Pusi. Don't. We're better than this. Now, I've dogged on the defenders constantly in this video, and rightfully so, because anytime the opposition applies just a little pressure on City, the defensive shape looks worse than Timor-Leste. However, we also need to talk about the rest of the team, because honestly, they have been hilariously bad. Typically, when you watch Man City play, it's like a well-oiled machine where the movement is fluid, and the passes are calculated to perfection. No matter what, it may be the smallest pass or something, every single movement has an intention, because they're always one step ahead of their opponents. That's why they've been so good for God knows how long. This year, though, They can't even string like 5 passes together sometimes. Nothing looks fluid. There have been so many terrible passes made, an extraordinary number of errors leading to chances for the opposition, and there's none of that cutting edge you associate with this team. In the league, City has scored 28 times. That's the 6th best in the league. It's not the best, but you know, it's still good in terms of ranking. Here's the issue though, that shit is extremely misleading. Outside of Erling Haaland's 13 goals, City's second highest goal scorer is error man himself, Josko Gvardiol, with 4. Jeremy Doku, who had a pretty solid season in 23-24, has been looking worse than Gabriel Martinelli this year, but I don't think anyone's ready for that conversation. Might I add, Phil Foden, who had 19 goals last season, currently has 0. I'm gonna get some flack for this one, but I'm gonna own up to it. Erling Haaland has not been good. In terms of Erling Haaland standards, let's put it that way, I guess. 13 goals in the league, sure, and he matches his XG, but if you actually watch how he's performed over the last like 2 months, I mean, like, he's just kind of off. He's not getting the best touches, if any sometimes, and also he's missing from point blank range a lot. And Kevin De Bruyne, I could just kind of tell Father Time was doing his thing when I saw him return with this cut, but there's no dancing around the line anymore. He's just washed. Which brings me to my next point. City is currently dealing with the problem that many dynasties eventually have to come face to face with. Some of the A-listers are getting old. They no longer can move like they used to. In other words, they're finished, and we're all relishing in it. We've already mentioned De Bruyne. There's also Jack Grealish, who yes, has had his injury concerns, which is another issue. But also, he hasn't scored in a calendar year. Bernardo Silva, who has been in the past such an important player in the City squad, has fallen off a cliff this season. And probably the biggest scapegoat of them all, Kyle Walker, who is just flat out done. Like, he needs to go. Whatever he's got on the club to have him still be there, listen, I'm not opposed to it. Now, Pep isn't really doing him any favors by giving him a role that just he really isn't able to do anymore, but it does say a lot when the fullback is more concerned about him being photoshopped as a terrorist on Twitter than his performances literally on every corner this season. And don't even get me started on his affairs. I've also seen criticisms towards Pep. Some of them have been valid, talking about his tactics or how he's been using players, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the other side of the coin, basically just all these different opinions being used for outrage clicks because that's what football content is nowadays on social media. Anyways, to sum this up, Manchester City are slowly inching towards a rebuild period and have slightly misjudged how fast it's been approaching. And then you have the injury crisis, which is just making this whole season derail, basically. Now, enough of me being relatively sensible. This could not have happened to a more annoying fan base, and I am loving every single bit of it. Oh, boo-hoo, my club that has dominated English football for more than half a decade and has won a treble is playing not very well, and it's making me sad. Would you like me to play a song on the world's smallest violin? And to the fucking boomers who are always like, oh, I used to watch this team struggle against the likes of Macclesfield Town, Scunthorpe United, and Westpool Chestershire FC, so I'm very thankful to Sheikh Mansour for giving my kids wonderful memories. No one cares. I don't care. And I literally made the most unbiased video on your history. We do not need to hear every 3 seconds about how you were basically manipulated by sports washing and you would happily suck Sheikh Mansour's oil-covered. I know a lot of fans are still thinking like, oh, this is like typical Manchester City during the months of November and December. Like they just kind of have this little like wall that they run into, but then they bounce back and win the league somehow. I'm telling you, this one is extremely different. There are so many positions right now that need fixing that quite honestly, I don't think Manchester City can just take this and run into like a 30-game win streak. I don't think it's possible. Now, if this video is to jinx Manchester City into doing something like that, I might need to sacrifice myself so this shit doesn't happen again. But what do you guys think about the whole situation? Do you think Manchester City can bounce back from this? Or is this a lost cause and they should really focus on the rebuild period for next season? let me know. Of course though, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balas, Chupas, Brazilian Fury, Respect the Jeff, Othman JN, Habakkuk, Jeremiah Owusu Ajimang, Django, Sexy Asian Diddler, Adnazir Makalankam, Alex Rod, Ulta, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kit, Sniffrix, Takuoka Fan, The Cypriot 35, Not Windows 95 Man, Kentra Agatra, Big Boris the Baby Eater II, Kerbo, Unkwell, St. Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Ryan Jans, Wise Orange, Rashford Enthusiast, Cocosaurus Rex, LeJames Braun, Samu, Just MRC, Cheesebait, Cooper Rory, The Somali Pirate, Claymore Roomba, Winder Gel, and Ford Does Stuff, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portergeiser, TPSK25, Polar Protos, Van Fran, Lucien Von Croix, Ethan Bennett Loskavicha, Gazegers Bishakiewicz, Mano Tango Fei, Adrian, A Ghostly Owl, Cody Wolves, Matanai, Nava, Sketchy Card, KM89, Apollo, Kevin Mojica, Crispus Consi, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Krebs, Mohammed Altanib, Niche, Patrick Barley, Rashford God5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member of the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, follow me on Instagram if you like, follow my Twitch because I'll be doing a charity stream from December 20th, 11 a.m. to December 21st, 11 a.m. 24 hours. We'll also have a shirt auction thing, and guess what? This is one of the shirts I'm giving away. But until then, I'll see you guys.